The Bengals have met with some big-time names at the NFL Scouting Combine this week, but a couple of them come with their own red flags. So in this video, I'll explain which of them the Bengals should probably avoid in the NFL Draft. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and the Bengals, well, they're not too hard to figure out this time of year. And I'm not just talking about free agency, where we can pretty clearly identify which positions the Bengals are going to be targeting. Remember when free agency visits used to be a thing, where teams didn't do anything in the legal tampering period, and you had guys actually being flown in to the stadium and take like a physical and everything like that? That obviously doesn't happen anymore, but still, we can pretty clearly see which positions the Bengals are going to be focused on in free agency. I'm more referring to the draft in this case. Now, they say the draft starts at Mobile for the Senior Bowl, but the NFL Scouting Combine, which is going on right now, this is where teams really get a first look at a wide range of prospects that they're going to be interested in drafting. And the question that everyone wants to know every single year is which prospect has met with which team. And the answer is typically most prospects have met with most teams. But when you look at the Bengals, the guys that they end up drafting, they end up meeting with multiple times throughout the pre-draft process, and this all begins at the Combine. So when you take a look at the list of prospects that the Bengals have already met with at the Combine, there's something that stands out here, and it's a lot of pass rushers. And we're not just talking about any pass rushers here. We're talking about 5 or 6 pass rushers who could all go in the first round. I'm talking about James Pierce Jr., Mike Green, Nick Scourton, Shamar Stewart, Mykel Williams, and Walter Nolan. It's very clear that the Bengals are very interested in using their first round pick on a defensive lineman, someone that can generate pass rushing boosts, because why the hell would they not be? Their pass rush was completely terrible outside of Trey Hendrickson last year. It's unlikely that they're going to be able to swim in the deep waters in free agency at those position groups. In this day and age where the average cost for an elite pass rusher is $25 to $30 million a year, the best path forward for any team is to attack it in the draft, and the Bengals are definitely along this line of thinking. But I must say, for the Bengals case, they have to be careful, because at least half the names I mentioned all have pretty significant red flags in their profiles. Like, let's start with Stewart here, who has the speed and explosion reminiscent of another former Texas A&M pass rusher, Myles Garrett. The only difference is Myles Garrett was completely more productive in college. Not only did he finish his pressures, he generated pressure on a much more consistent rate. For whatever reason, Stewart was not a productive pass rusher in college despite his elite athleticism, and it's very rare for guys to go from not being very productive to being very productive in the NFL. Williams also has a similar case, another pretty good athlete from an SEC program, but again, didn't win very much as a pass rusher, and it's very hard for those guys to all of a sudden become elite pass rushers at the next level. Now, with Pierce, Green, and Nolan, you have much better production profiles, and you have a lot more confidence that those guys can win at the next level, because they're also pretty decent athletes in their own right. Their red flags are more along the lines of potential character concerns, which I think is very important to meet with them and just to get your own perspective on who these guys are as people and get your own background checks. So it's good that the Bengals are doing their due diligence in that regard. But again, specifically for the Bengals, who have had such a difficult time in recent years, not just recent years, like the last 15 years of just drafting defensive linemen, a lot of it goes down to not being able to identify the right traits and production profiles from these guys at the college level. Like Myles Murphy, for example, he was a late first round pick who didn't win that much as a pass rusher in college. Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson were both more well known for their run defense rather than their pass rushing prowess. The Bengals didn't draft Trey Hendrickson back in 2017, that was the New Orleans Saints, but he was a very productive pass rusher coming out of FAU. Hell, Geno Atkins, relative to those Georgia defenses in the late 2000s, he was very productive for a defensive tackle. The Bengals need to value guys who won as pass rushers at the college level and look beyond just the gaudy athleticism numbers that you'll see pop up at the Combine. And I say that as someone who absolutely 100% values how athletic a pass rusher is. It's very hard for guys who may have won at the college level, but if they're middling or low tier athletes, it's harder to win at that rate against NFL caliber athletes. You need the whole picture. You need to be a quality football player who knows what you're doing. You need to have won at a high rate at the college level, and you need to be at least an above average athlete in order to translate that success to the next level. So as the Bengals prepare to invest in their defensive line group early in this year's NFL draft, I hope that they come away knowing that they need to find someone who checks all of those boxes. But what do you guys think? Do any of those names really excite you as a potential Bengals first round draft pick? Let me know in the comments below.